The Hindenburg disaster is etched in history, but there's more to the story than flames and falling giants. Get ready for 10 surprising facts about this legendary airship. Number 1. More individuals survived the Hindenburg disaster than perished. Anyone who has seen the harrowing newsreel footage of the Hindenburg disaster might be surprised to learn that there were survivors. In fact, out of the 97 people on board, 62 remarkably walked away alive. This survival rate, though tragic in its own right, was significantly higher than other major disasters, like the Titanic sinking. While the fiery crash claimed the lives of 13 passengers, 22 crew members, and 1 ground crewman, several factors contributed to the number of survivors. The Hindenburg wasn't very high off the ground when the fire began, allowing some passengers and crew to jump from windows before the flames fully engulfed the airship. Additionally, the forward part of the Zeppelin, where many passengers were located, remained relatively intact for a longer period, providing an escape route for some. Number 2. The Hindenburg disaster wasn't the deadliest airship accident in history. While the Hindenburg disaster is etched in history due to the dramatic newsreel footage and Herbert Morrison's famous radio commentary, it wasn't the deadliest airship accident. In fact, the USS Akron, a helium-filled U.S. Navy rigid airship, holds that distinction. It crashed off the coast of New Jersey in a severe storm on April 4, 1933, claiming the lives of 73 crew members with only 3 survivors. This tragedy, overshadowed by the Hindenburg years later, remains the deadliest airship accident in history. Another lesser-known incident, the crash of the British military airship R-101 in 1930, also resulted in a higher death toll than the Hindenburg. 48 people lost their lives when the R-101 came down in France during a storm. Number 3. The Hindenburg disaster wasn't aired live on radio. Though present at the landing site for WLS Chicago, Herbert Morrison wasn't narrating a live broadcast when the Hindenburg disaster unfolded. His now iconic report, filled with raw emotion and urgency, was actually recorded during the event. These recordings were rushed back to Chicago by plane and then broadcast later that night. The next day, excerpts of Morrison's powerful account were picked up and rebroadcast nationwide, forever etching the tragedy into public memory. The later pairing of his audio with newsreel footage solidified the impact of both the disaster and Morrison's reporting. Number 4. American regulations prohibited the Hindenburg from utilizing helium, a non-flammable alternative to hydrogen. The Hindenburg disaster wasn't the first airship tragedy to highlight the dangers of hydrogen. Following the fiery crash of the British R-101 in 1930, where most fatalities resulted from the flames, designer Hugo Eckener of the Hindenburg pushed for helium, a non-flammable alternative. However, the United States held a near monopoly on helium at the time, fearing its use in military airships by other nations. This led to a ban on helium exports, forcing the Hindenburg to stick with the riskier hydrogen. Ironically, public opinion in the U.S. shifted after the Hindenburg disaster itself. Sympathy for Germany and a desire to prevent similar tragedies led to support for exporting helium for the next German airship, the LZ-130. Laws were amended to allow non-military helium exports. However, the political climate soured again with Germany's annexation of Austria in 1938. Secretary of the Interior Harold Ickes ultimately refused to finalize the helium deal, leaving the LZ-130 grounded and marking the end of the golden age of passenger airships. Number 5. A smoker's lounge was available aboard the Hindenburg. Remarkably, the Hindenburg, a colossal airship filled with flammable hydrogen, boasted a smoking room for its passengers. To mitigate the obvious fire risk, the room was meticulously designed, unlike personal lighters or matches, which were strictly forbidden on board. The smoking room offered a single electric lighter. This room also featured a double-door airlock system pressurized to a higher air pressure than the rest of the airship. This clever design ensured any leaking hydrogen would flow out, not in. A dedicated steward oversaw entry and exit, double-checking that no one left with a glowing ember that could ignite a disaster. While the concept of a smoking room on a hydrogen-filled vessel seems inherently risky today, these measures aim to create a designated and controlled smoking environment. Number 6. A custom-built lightweight piano was crafted specifically for use on the Hindenburg. To add a touch of luxury for their passengers, the Hindenburg's owners commissioned a one-of-a-kind piano from the prestigious firm of Julius Bluthner. This special baby grand had to meet the airship's strict weight restrictions. The solution? Bluthner crafted a masterpiece largely out of aluminum alloy, tipping the scales at a mere 356 pounds, a fraction of a typical grand piano's weight. The instrument, adorned in a unique yellow pigskin finish, became a focal point of the Hindenburg's music salon during its maiden voyage. However, in a twist of fate, the lightweight piano wasn't on board for the Hindenburg's final flight. It had been removed earlier in the year for display at the Bluthner factory, tragically destroyed during an air raid in 1943. Number 7. The maiden flight of the Hindenburg served as a propaganda mission for the Nazi regime. The Hindenburg, though not a direct creation of the Nazi regime, became a powerful propaganda tool. Despite its development predating the Nazi rise to power, the airship's grandeur perfectly aligned with Hitler's vision of German dominance. Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, saw an opportunity. He orchestrated the Hindenburg's first public flight in 1936, strategically coinciding with a pro-Nazi referendum. This 4,100-mile tour, alongside another airship, became a spectacle. Patriotism soared as the airships blared pro-Hitler messages and showered German cities with swastika-laden propaganda leaflets. The result? A near-unanimous 98.8% approval rating for the referendum, a clear sign of the manipulative power of the event. Later that year, the Hindenburg's role continued. Adorned with Olympic rings and towing a massive Olympic flag, it became a centerpiece of the 1936 Berlin Summer Olympics, another platform for Nazi propaganda. The airship, further emblazoned with swastikas, was such a potent symbol that it attracted constant bomb threats. These threats, even looming over its final voyage, fueled speculation of sabotage in the Hindenburg disaster itself. Number 8. Dozens of letters that traveled on the Hindenburg were successfully delivered. Even in its fiery demise, the Hindenburg offered a remarkable testament to the power of mail delivery. A pioneer in transatlantic airmail service, the Hindenburg carried a staggering 17,000 pieces of correspondence on its final flight. Incredibly, due to a protective container, 176 letters survived the inferno. These charred but readable pieces of history were postmarked a mere 4 days after the disaster and stand as some of the most valuable stamp-collecting artifacts in the world. Their survival serves as a poignant reminder of the human desire to connect, even amidst tragedy. Number 9. Goebbels recommended that the Hindenburg bear the name of Adolf Hitler. The Hindenburg's name held hidden tensions. Dr. Hugo Eckener, the airship's designer and a man with no love for the Nazi regime, defied propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels' demands to christen the vessel after Adolf Hitler. Instead, Eckener chose to honor the late German president, Paul von Hindenburg, a figure respected for his role in World War I. Interestingly, Hitler himself wasn't particularly enamored with airships. In a dark twist of fate, this lack of enthusiasm may have been a silver lining. After the Hindenburg's disastrous crash, some speculated sabotage, and Hitler reportedly expressed relief that the burning Zeppelin didn't bear his name, adding another layer of complexity to the Hindenburg's legacy. Number 10. Metal from a previously exploded airship was repurposed in the construction of the Hindenburg. The 804-foot-long Hindenburg, also known as LZ-129, began construction in 1931 in Friedrichshafen, Germany. The Luftschiffbau Zeppelin Company, determined to be resourceful, did some unexpected recycling. Following the crash of the British R-101, a hydrogen airship, in 1930, the Zeppelin Company purchased duralumin, a lightweight and strong aluminum alloy from the wreckage. This salvaged material was then used in the construction of the Hindenburg itself. In a twist of fate, some of the very components from a doomed airship found new life in the ill-fated Hindenburg. Thanks for joining us here on Searching History, friends. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down below, and we'll catch you on the next one.